All right. Give everyone a few more seconds to join and we'll get started. Welcome, everyone, and thanks for joining us today for this exciting webinar on how KnowledgeLake empowers organizations like yours to operationalize AI quickly and seamlessly through the Azure Marketplace. In this session, we'll cut through the AI hype and explore practical strategies for rapid deployment, featuring real-world success stories that highlight the transformative potential of AI in streamlining operations. But stay tuned until the end for a chance to get your customized demo, and don't hesitate to bring questions to the session. There's a Q&A window at the bottom of the screen. We're here to help you take actionable steps towards AI-powered success. Also, this webinar is going to be recorded so you can watch it later on demand. And now I'll pass it to Jason, Chief Customer Officer here at KnowledgeLake. Jason?
Thanks, Pam. So let's jump in and get started. I think today we're going to cover, obviously AI is a huge part of every leadership team conversation. I think a lot of organizations don't really know where to start. So we'll talk a little bit about AI and where we are in that adoption curve, what it's really great at, what are some challenges some organizations face, and then we'll give you some ideas of actionable places that you can really start that will have a meaningful impact for your organization. All right, so like I said, everybody today, every organization today is talking about AI. Can we trust it? Is it secure? Where we put it to use? McKinsey tells us that over 90% of CIOs think that AI will have, not can have, but will have a significant impact on their business. And that, across the board, global spending is up. In 2 years, we could see the specific AI market hitting over 300 billion. But again, I think when we talk to CIOs and CTOs and leadership teams at organizations, they can find some pointed use cases for AI. A lot of people are using it in marketing to generate content, to generate emails. A lot of people are using it in sales to generate plays and communications to their customers. But operationally, how do they use AI to drive their business? A lot of organizations just don't know where to start. All right, so let's talk about where AI is great. It is very, very, very good at reducing the amount of manual work it takes to do certain tasks. So summarizing content, I use it a lot when I'm reading a long white paper. One of the things I'll do first is I'll throw it into AI and I'll say, hey, give me a summary here, give me an executive briefing, and then that'll help me sort of get my head around what I'm about to read. Extracting data, analyzing data, it's really great at identifying patterns. So if you have sort of 3 sets of data and you want to look for patterns in between them, AI is really great for that. It's also really good at transforming things. Especially we're seeing huge applications in things like restructuring of data, taking a data set and reshaping it so that it's easier to work with, translating languages, refactoring things, especially like code. We're seeing, big impacts with code co-pilots, and especially the latest version of ChatGPT. They built in a lot of tools. So sort of being able to view your code on one side, but work with the AI assistant on the other side in refactoring it. And then finally, generative operations. I have found that AI can help me get from 0 to 80% on an idea really quickly, planning and brainstorming and drafting. And so that it's always hard to get started, and AI can really help you go from 0 to 80 really quickly. And then, then fine tuning that last 20% is really the difficult part. So where do organizations find challenges? I think first and foremost, every organization today is talking about security. If I'm going to use an AI, if I'm going to use a generative AI, an LLM from OpenAI or from Microsoft through the Azure Marketplace or Llama or Minstrel, what data is going in, and is that information that I'm supplying it being used to improve or scale? Is it now part of the LLM? We've all heard horror stories of entire huge code bases being uploaded to an LLM, and now it's just part of the training data. And so, especially when we're talking about operations, a lot of our customers are banks, credit unions, wealth management companies, and very, very core to their business is their customers' data. We work with a lot of universities, so you have student data and enrollment data. We work with a lot of state and local government, so you have citizen data, you have legal data, and we have to ensure that none of that information that we send, the prompts, the responses, the few shot examples, none of that becomes part of the LLM. So I think, first of all, security is first and foremost. I think the other challenge that a lot of organizations have is around their team members. Prompt engineering, writing prompts and working with LLMs, it is natural language, but it doesn't come natural. It's a little art and it's a little science. If you understand how an LLM works, I think you have a better way of being able to operate with it. You can see its output that it gives you and then work with that response to sort of massage it to get a better second or third step. But not a lot of people, I think there's still a huge portion of the population who's never went to ChatGPT or an AI LLM and worked with a prompt. And the idea of working with prompts, it's unnatural. But with a little bit of practice, a little bit of training, we can help close that gap quickly. All right, so where do we start? I think that's the question that I hear a lot from customers that want to put AI to real work, that really want to drive ROI. They really want to have AI make a dramatic change, a dramatic impact on their business. And so I thought the best way to share that was with a customer story of a customer that we just worked with recently. So their problem was a very common problem that a lot of organizations have, which is a lot of processes that run our business. If you're a bank, a loan or a new account has to deal with documents. If you're an insurance company, adjudicating or processing claims has to deal with documents. Student enrollment, transcripts and applications and driver's licenses and student visas, and has to do with documents. So many of the processes that are at the heart of our businesses today are still very document heavy, and that makes them cumbersome. And this organization was no different. Their whole business, sort of the heart of their business, is processing county records for counties across the United States. So if you go to any county, wherever you're sitting today, in whatever county you're in, there is a county courthouse. And in the basement of that county courthouse are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of books that have county records. These are things like land records, like mortgages and leases and deeds and trusts and things like that. It's vital records like death certificates and marriage certificates. A huge portion of that big, giant, probably nice, old, well-constructed, great architecture building, in the basement of that are huge portions of records. And so our customer helps those counties digitize those records, create good quality images, and then extract all of the vital pieces of information from those so they can be stored digitally, searchable. And the problem that our customer had was this is a very people-intensive business. Their only real way to do it is to have two different offshore teams. So they digitize the images and they have team one log in and look at those images and apply the data. They have team two do the same thing in kind of a double blind mode. And then they compare those results. If those results match, meaning they got the same name or the same parcel ID or the same date, then they assume that if two different people got it right, then it's straight through. If they don't have a match, then they send it to their onshore QA team. But only after they're completely done with the project are they able to invoice this project. Are they able to bill their client for it? And the challenge there is, they've got a backlog of 20 million documents and growing for their customers. Their clients are frustrated because they can't get their projects completed fast enough, because they have an offshore team that's hard to manage. It has high turnover. It's costly. The talent pool is scarce. And so they, because they've built their process around people, they can't execute as fast as they need to. And they're not alone. I think for the last 20 years, if everybody in the audience just sort of, puts a mirror up to themselves and reflects on how we've built processes over the last 20 years, we've built processes with tools and maybe some automation, and maybe we've gone from paper to digital, but those processes are all still relatively people-based. And as an organization, if we want to do more, we have to hire more people. I was speaking with a bank, a commercial lending bank in Michigan, not that long ago, and they really struggled through COVID. They used to be able to turn around a commercial loan in about 21 days, or at least get to terms in about 21 days. But they had some people early retire, and the person I was talking to said, believe it or not, kids coming out of college don't want to go into commercial banking. And so they built processes that are centered around people. They've had some people leave. They can't backfill them. And their organization has pressured them to continue to grow their operation. But they can't do that if they can't get enough people. And so that 21 days quickly went to 30 and 45 and greater. So you have this organization here, our customer, that has a huge backlog of information to go through. They've built a process that is centered around people, and they can only invoice their customer when they get the project completed, and they just can't get them done fast enough. So KnowledgeLake came in, and we started an AI project with them. Part of our goal was faster time to value. So how could we reduce their project setup time? So when they were going to start a project, how could we get that turned around faster? Focused on eliminating manual work straight through processing and automating those document processing tasks that were being done by humans. Enhance the exception handling so that when things were wrong, humans were still looking at them to ensure maximum accuracy. And then building in a system of continuous improvement over time. These are not projects that just run for 4 weeks, right? These are long running projects, sometimes even day forward projects. So the first thing that we focused on was accelerating their setup time using a strategy called agentic workflows. So agents are pre-trained. They have personas and personalities and skills that are actually a lot like a human. And humans work really good when we work in a team and we can pass things back and forth. And I can start with a first draft and give it to my colleague to review, and they can provide some feedback, and then I can improve it and pass it back and forth. Agentic workflows, AI agents working in that same fashion, are excellent for having, in this case, we had an AI training and configuration agent and then a validation agent. And what they're able to do is loop in between each other at an unbelievably fast rate of speed, right? That humans just can't do. And so the AI agent reads some input information, attempts to do the configuration. It loops with its validation agent over and over and over again, and then uses our AI to push that training. And what this does is we're able to exceed the human level of training because we can iterate so quickly. You see this pattern happen a lot with application development and code writing. you have a code writing agent, you have a code testing agent, and then you have a QA agent. Very similar to how humans would organize themselves to create an application. But this group, this trio of agents can loop on itself so quickly and produce significantly higher level output than even if just a human was working with an AI assistant sort of side by side. And so with that, we're able to take some simple inputs and train the system incredibly fast. So within an hour, we now have a fully trained system that's ready to be put to work on a project. From there, documents come in. We run them through our classification agent, our synthetic labor agent that's focused on classification, that uses a multitude of techniques, meta strategies that blend computer vision and machine learning, natural language processing, large language models to identify what these documents are. It then passes it to our synthetic labor metadata tagging agent to get all of the pertinent information off of that document. And here's where the sort of unique point comes in. With LLMs and AI, they often struggle with this idea of confidence. If you ask an LLM or an AI, did you get the answer right? It's going to tell you yes. Otherwise, it wouldn't have given you that answer. We've all, maybe some of us have seen that experience before where you ask an LLM a question that says, hey, sorry, for whatever reason, whether it's a boundary or I'm not confident in it, I can't give you an answer. But KnowledgeLake is able to devise a confidence scoring that allows us to know whether documents are of high quality, whether the answers, the information that we got off the documents are high quality or not. And so this allows us to only send the high confidence documents straight through and only send the low confidence documents to a QC team that simply has to review them. So there's very little data entry happening anymore. It's really just reviewing and maybe making some minor corrections. And so we're able to get over 70% of the total fields of a high confidence with straight through processing and automation. And so if you think about, if you go back to what I told you about this customer, we're talking about 20 million documents with on average about 5 pieces of information per document. And we've now eliminated 70% of that work that was being done by humans. All right, so that was one just story to show you a real world example of how AI can be put to work immediately for your organization in a real world operational impact. I'm going to turn it over to James, solution architect with KnowledgeLake, and he's going to take you through another idea. James, over to you.
Thanks so much, Jason. So let me just share my screen. Okay, so what I want to spend the next 10 minutes or so doing is walking through some high-level concepts within the KnowledgeLake platform itself. So that way you get a chance to really connect the value proposition and the message that Jason was just sharing with an understanding of what is it that we're actually doing. So to begin with, when we talk about the KnowledgeLake platform, actually it's a really large and capable set of capabilities. And we can think about this as being decomposed into kind of 4 key areas. There's the AI-based intelligent document processing side of the house, which is along the lines of what Jason was just showing. There's a workflow capability, which is the ability to say, how is it that we can have our synthetic labor workforce interact with human workers and interactively share information across each other, assign tasks, move information inside and outside of KnowledgeLake into external systems, et cetera. There's a content management capability. So think about that as something like maybe a wrapper around SharePoint to say, how is it that we avoid ending up with a digital junk drawer, being able to ensure that our information is very nicely organized and we're able to find documents down the line instead of having to trawl through information that takes us a lot of time and we never find what we need. And finally, there's also an RPA component, which is very helpful for legacy interaction with really old pieces of software like mainframes. Now, obviously, given our time constraints today, we don't have time to dig into everything on here. So I'm just going to do a high-level overview of our intelligent document processing capability, the intuitive AI, and the workflow side of the house. That said, if you want to know more about the broader capabilities, by all means, reach out and get in touch with us. We're happy to do a deeper dive. We're happy to do, as Pam already mentioned earlier, a custom demo to show you what your documents might look like within KnowledgeLake. So to begin with, I think it's helpful to talk a little bit about how is it that information gets into the KnowledgeLake platform. There are a couple different ways we can do that. The simplest of which, is what you see on your screen right now. It's simply being able to take information that is accessible from your local machine and add it to the application. That can just be files that are available on your desktop. That can be maybe a network drive that you have access to, maybe external media. But that's not the limitation of the KnowledgeLake platform. We can also have information come in through interaction with monitoring with email inboxes, where KnowledgeLake will keep an eye on the email inbox, and when a file comes in, it will ingest information that way. We can connect directly to existing document processing systems, whether those be desktop scanners or multifunction printers, or even very large industrial scale scanners like what are made by the likes of IBML. And we also have the ability to simply connect to third-party systems, whether those be document repositories like SharePoint, et cetera, to monitor information and bring it in that way. So once information is uploaded into KnowledgeLake, then we have to decide what to do with it. And that's where the workflow capability comes into play. And to show a quick example here along the lines of what Jason was just talking about with regard to property records, make this a bit bigger so you can see it. Our workflow engine is where we provide the capability to tell KnowledgeLake what is it that we should be doing with this information, because we're not simply grabbing it for the sake of uploading it into a repository. We also want to do something with it so that way we can automate those workflows. And again, as Jason mentioned, help that particular client save 70% of the manual effort. So as you can see on the screen in front of you, the workflow interface is a code-free drag and drop editor, and gives you the capability to, again, specify what is it that you want to do with your data. The example I have on the screen right now for working with property records is very straightforward. There's only a few steps on here. This can be as simple or as complex as you want. You could certainly add various different bits of branching logic, the ability to invoke subroutines and subprocesses, the ability to loop back on itself. In this high-level example, though, we don't necessarily need that. In this notional case of working with property records, if we think about the way this usually works, going back to that image that Jason shared earlier of the basement of the courthouse with all the books of documents. In terms of getting digital information through, a lot of those county clerks and the recorders will receive information in bulk. Sometimes they'll receive individual documents, but a lot of times they can actually be mashed together in hundreds or even thousands of pages. And so in this example that I've created for the workflow, I'm starting off with a custom step to simply go through and separate those out into individual documents, because you may have mortgages and deeds and trusts and all those other type of things all combined together. Once that's been done, then we have the ability to to leverage our intuitive AI capability to classify those documents. And again, this is important because when you're looking at property records, you're not just looking at one specific type of document. So KnowledgeLake can go through and say, oh, I understand this is a deed, or this is a mortgage, whatever that might be. And once it understands what the document is, then it has the ability to go through and actually do the indexing, i.e. extracting those metadata fields that Jason talked about earlier to say, if this is a mortgage, I need to know what the instrument number is, and I need the property description, and I need to know the maturity date, etc. And from there, I've simply told KnowledgeLake that I want to create searchable PDF copies of everything that I've brought in. So that way we have a nice archival copy that we can easily find information of, and then I can upload it to a destination. Again, whether that be something like SharePoint or whatever other document repository that we might be using. Again, totally notional. This is very high level. As you can see from the panel on the left-hand side, we actually have the ability to do quite a number of different tasks and different actions. It just depends on what you want to do. So moving forward, once we've decided what we want to do with these property records once they come into KnowledgeLake, I'm actually going to pivot briefly now to our intuitive AI capability, because what I want to be able to do is to show you how is it that we can teach KnowledgeLake to understand what we're looking at when it comes to a document. How does it understand that this is a mortgage, or this is a deed, or this is an invoice, or whatever else it might be? Now, there's, out of the box, you don't need to provide any examples of what you're looking at. You don't need to provide any templates. You don't need to provide training data. You simply tell KnowledgeLake there's a particular class of document that you want, and there's some certain metadata fields that you want to pull out of it. Now, obviously, the performance metrics of the platform get better when you add some examples, and we refer to what we refer to as few shot model, where you can actually add a couple examples to make things work a bit better. And so in this example on the screen that I'm showing you, I've got a couple examples of mortgage documents. I can make these a little bit bigger. You can see these are things that you might see at a county recorder's office, where we've got details about a mortgage. In this case, we've got some handwritten some handwritten data. We've got some machine printed information. Sometimes we'll have stamps across the top, like in this case, the timestamp and details from recording. But really, the most important part here is not so much the example itself, but really the actions that we want to take, i.e., what are those metadata fields that we want to extract? And so this is where we would go through and tell KnowledgeLake in plain text, just like Jason mentioned, hey, this is what I want you to do. And you can see on the page on the screen about a couple examples where I want to pull details on the borrower. And sometimes there's a co-borrower if it's a family that's buying a property together. I need to know our execution date. I need to know our instrument number, excuse me. And what's nice about this is not limited to just text. It can be numbers, it can be dates, it can be currency amounts. I've got the ability to build tables, which I've actually done down at the bottom, using a table to normalize a property description. And we also have the ability to add in hints. And if I show you an example of what this looks like, this kind of gets into what Jason talked about earlier as well with prompting, to say, well, we need to explain to the AI, what is it that we really mean here? Because in the example of mortgages, there are different terms that are used here. So if we talk about a borrower, well, sometimes that term is used differently. Maybe it's term mortgager. And so I've explained here to our underlying AI agent that mortgager is an analogous term. And I've also given it some rules about how do I want this to be formatted. I want the first borrower to be captured in the borrower field, and I want the second borrower to be captured in the co-borrower field. I could give it formatting instructions, like instead of it being first name, last name, I want last name, comma, first name. I want it to be all capitalized. I want you to ignore descriptors or titles, etc. This is all about providing the context to KnowledgeLake, so that way it really is delivering data based on what it is that you need and what you're looking for.
Yeah, and James, if I could just jump in real quick, I think, a lot of the apprehension to getting started with AI is we talked a lot about skill set.
Mm-hmm.
And with KnowledgeLake, we wanted to create a platform that you didn't have to write code. You didn't have to write regular expressions. You didn't have to be a data scientist to be able to use the platform. We have what we call zero shot. So right out of the box, without any training whatsoever, KnowledgeLake's still pretty accurate in identifying documents and extracting data. And then as you add these refiners, these simple natural language prompts, they're very easy, very approachable. You don't really have to have a lot of skills. You just have to describe, like you were to describing to a coworker. In this case, it's your AI coworker, how you would go find this information on a page in a very natural language context.
Yeah, that's some great context, Jason. Thank you very much. And that really is key, the ability to say this is all just natural language, right? No need to write code here. So in my few minutes remaining, the last bit I want to show then is, again, an example of what does this look like in action. And so for that, I'm going to switch over to our index app. And I want to show, again, just kind of a high-level example. So as we already talked about earlier, and what I showed you earlier with the workflow capability, we're instructing KnowledgeLake what to do with these documents when they come through. It's going to be looking at a whole variety of property records. It's going to sort those, separate them based on what type of record they are, and it's going to extract those key metadata values. In the ideal situation, most of those are going to go the straight through processing route that Jason talked about. And if we use the example that he shared of our existing customer, that's about 70%. So it's a pretty high pass rate. But we all know in the real world, things are never perfect. And there are often times where you get something that just doesn't quite work. And the same is true here for KnowledgeLake. Sometimes maybe it is a very unusual document layout that really doesn't align to what the model thinks it should be looking for. Or maybe it's a very poor scan quality, and it just simply can't pull the OCR values. Whatever that might be, sometimes it needs assistance. And when that happens, when it encounters a document that can't just go straight through processing, lights out, no human involved, it's going to raise an exception and send an alert to a human operator to say, hey, I need assistance with this document or these documents. And that's when humans get involved in this indexing screen, which is what I'm in right now. And in these just very kind of two quick high-level examples, again, we're just looking at mortgages. The indexing panel on the right-hand side, those are those metadata values we were talking about. The section in the middle is the actual scanned image of the document itself. And you can see in this case, actually, it really did pull everything out. So this is maybe not the world's best example, but it pulled out, first of all, it classified this document correctly, that it is a mortgage. It's got our first two borrowers. It actually has the MIN number. It's got details on the lender, so the lender's name and address. We pulled out the instrument number from the document itself. We've got all the relevant dates for execution date and recorded date. We know the total amount of the mortgage, the maturity date. And then remember, I talked about earlier about having a table to properly or to uniformly format your information. Here I've got a table that I created or asked the AI agent to create that will give us some standardized descriptions for the property. So things like a parcel number, a lot number, a book, a page, an address, etc. Whoops, cancel that here. We don't need to change anything to it. And just very quickly, too, at a high level, a lot of times people will ask, well, how is it that we found this? We're also able to overlay those OCR snippets to say, hey, I want to see where in the document did it find this particular name, Norma Pauline versus Diane Mateo versus a MIN number. So it's not just making it up. So again, in the real world, if this were an index example where the OCR couldn't find it, a human user could come in here and actually change the name. If the name was Smith instead of Holt, we could easily make those changes, save this, and then push it on for continued processing. So really, that is everything that I wanted to show in terms of kind of the high-level overview of the KnowledgeLake platform, show it to you in a nutshell to help you understand what is it really that's going on underneath the hood? What does this application look like? What are some of the capabilities that we can do with it? How does this work in the context of the example Jason just shared of property records? So with that, I am going to stop my sharing, and I'm going to hand it back over to Jason.
Jason, you're on mute.
Great. One last bit of context there. We shared with that use case with the land records. You know, they were getting upwards of 70% straight through processing. These are incredibly hard problem spaces. You know, you're talking about a land deed record from 1893 that's written in cursive, and you know that's not how we make documents. There are lots of use cases around organizations, mortgages, claims, invoices, student transcripts, where we get significantly better results. That just happened to be a very complicated problem space, which is why they were only able to solve it with so many people. Okay, so the whole point of this presentation is, how do I get started? How do we remove barriers? How do we give you ideas on where to start? And then how do we make it easy? So one of the ways that we've made it easy is by making the KnowledgeLake platform available directly through the Azure Marketplace. One of the great things about Azure, I talked earlier about AI and security. KnowledgeLake's data protection agreements with Microsoft, we have a long 20-year history with Microsoft. We're a 5-time Microsoft Partner of the Year, or maybe 6 or 5. I think it's 6. 6-time Partner of the Year. And we've got a great data protection agreement with Microsoft that ensures that no information that we send it, no prompts, no responses, no inputs or outputs, no documents or data that we send is ever kept or part of an LLM long term. So you can access KnowledgeLake directly through your Azure portal. If you go to portal.azure.com and go to the marketplace and search for KnowledgeLake, you'll see the KnowledgeLake platform for easy purchase. It's 1, 2, 3 clicks, and your tenant is up and running within moments. For any of you in the audience that have a Mac, a Microsoft Azure commit to consume, essentially this is, you've made an agreement with Microsoft you've committed to consume X number of Azure bucks. KnowledgeLake can help you use any of that Mac spending that you have before the end of the year. So if you have some free dollars that it's kind of use it or lose it, this is a great place to start. We also are offering to the first 3 people that get in contact with us, that want a consultation, that want a customized demo, that saw what James showed and said, hey, I'd really like to see that in my world. I'd really like to talk about AI and synthetic labor. I'd like to talk about automation for my particular problem. And I'd like to, sort of figure out either a customized demo or a proof of concept. For the first 3 people that contact us, you can scan that QR code or you can email the wonderful Pamela. We have some Azure credits that we can actually offer you that would help you get started with less of an upfront cost. So if you're interested in where to start, please, please, please reach out. And with that, we've got a few minutes here. Pam, if you could see if we have any questions in the queue.
Yeah, absolutely. Please put your questions in the question window. Also in the attachment section here, there is a link to a form also, if that's easier for you to fill out to be considered for a free consultation. Bring your own documents. We can workshop with you. We can have a conversation. This is really about getting to understand what your specific needs are so that we can better assist you. And with that, let me take a look at some of the questions that are coming in. All right. So first question, how does KnowledgeLake ensure data security and privacy when deploying AI through the Azure Marketplace, specifically in safeguarding sensitive information from public AI models?
Yeah, so I kind of addressed that. I'll go a little bit more in depth. So we connect to large language models. We specifically use the Azure's implementation of OpenAI's models. These are different than going directly to OpenAI and connecting to those. We're going through the Azure AI Studio APIs, and that is what affords us the security to know that nothing is reinforcing the LLM, nothing is being made publicly available via the LLM. All of our prompts, our responses, inputs, outputs are sent, returned, and then immediately discarded. So, if you are looking for a partner to help you with operationalizing AI, please ask that question. For any of the audience that are not taking that seriously or haven't given that a consideration, please, please, please do. You could be potentially jeopardizing some of your very important data being made public.
Great. I'm going to go back one slide just to keep up the QR code. So
Great.
Please go ahead and scan it or email me directly, as Jason mentioned. Really want you to take advantage of these free consultations, customized demos with your documents. And please also continue to put questions in the question window. We've got another one here. What are the technical prerequisites or initial steps for businesses to quickly integrate KnowledgeLake's AI solutions through the Azure Marketplace?
Yeah, great question. I talked a lot about processes being very people-centric. And through no fault of our own, right? We have used people to create processes for forever. The problem with people-based processes is you might have rules, but they don't always get enforced or followed or well documented. So I think one of the biggest prerequisites that I think can really help an organization's, acceleration through AI is document your process today. If you have a well-documented process today, you have a flow chart or a Visio or a document that explains how data should flow and go through your processes, that is a great first start, because from there we can throw it up on the whiteboard and start to suss out opportunities for automation. Where are humans doing this and where are humans doing that? What mundane tasks can we remove? What repetitive things can be removed? Where are there inefficiencies in your process? If we can put that up on the whiteboard and start to come up with all types of different automation opportunities, that's what really accelerates those projects.
Awesome. We've got some great questions coming in. Please keep putting them up there. One is, how is the data that will be used for models collected?
Yeah, so when you train KnowledgeLake, you upload, and again, you don't have to. We do have zero shot or day zero accuracy. So without any training, you simply just tell us what documents you want to collect and what data you want without any training. And KnowledgeLake out of the box does a really good job. If you want to then press that for further accuracy, further straight through processing, that's when you would attempt to do some of the training that James was showing. From there, it's really just uploading a handful of example documents, representative documents, and providing those natural language, what we call hints. And that's most of the data that's collected. And again, that is all within inside of your KnowledgeLake tenant. That's not sent to the LLM. That's not sent to any AI APIs. That's all sort of kept for us so that we can better work with the LLM and the AI prompts. Hopefully I answered that question. That was a good one.
Great. Here's another great question. Is it possible to extract information from a document that is, let's say, 100 pages long on airport security report? User will ask a general question such as, does it have anything related to LAX airport?
Yeah.
If yes, return everything related to that.
Yeah. Awesome question. Document processing has been around for a really long time. We've been talking about the paperless office for 20 years. It's how long I've been doing this. I would say we're closer. We're clearly not there yet. What generative AI has helped us unlock is the ability to get so much more information out of documents. AIM will tell us that 80% of an organization's data is trapped inside of unstructured data or documents, video, voice, those kinds of things. What generative AI, it allows us to extract so much more information from these unstructured sources. So does this document contain X, Y, and Z? Does this document contain PII or PHI? Does this document contain a credit card number or a social security number? I don't actually want you to extract it. I want you to tell me if it's there so that I can use that information in a workflow. Does this document reference LAX airport? Yes or no? Create a 500-word non-legalese summary of this document, right? Those are types of things that pre-generative AI were not impossible, but incredibly, incredibly difficult to get to. But now they become actually really, really easy. So the answer to your question is yes. And that's a really cool question.
And we'd probably want to have a further conversation with you about that use case so that we can kind of get some of those documents and show you how it works.
Yeah, I think just back to the thing that James, I thought, said earlier, which is, content management is so much more than just a disarray of digital information. If you really think about a content management system paired with generative AI, what you really have is an incredibly powerful data lake and the ability to ask a question and intuit insights out of that information rather than just sort of a digital filing cabinet.
Perfect. Next question. I understand that you integrate with Microsoft Dynamics. If that's correct, are there any visuals of what that UX looks like?
The word integrate is a little broad. We do integrate with Microsoft Dynamics, as other platforms, Workday, Salesforce, PeopleSoft, SAP, both on-prem and cloud systems. KnowledgeLake can really integrate with anything through a different number of strategies, whether that's connectors or RPA or APIs. And it really depends on what you mean by integrate. We can pull data from Dynamics or other systems to validate data. So I've pulled off this student ID. Does that student ID exist in my student database? We can push data into those systems, either via API calls or RPA, and that looks a lot of different ways, but that's really an automation that we would build into the workflow. So picture any process that you have inside of your business. The end result of that process is probably, and I'm guessing here, I don't know any of you, I can't see any of your faces, but I'm going to guess the end result of many of those processes is data being put into some system, student information system, account management system, treasury or lending system, core banking application, Salesforce. Getting data in these processes into those systems is usually a core tenet of that. And so that is often a great place to start with driving humans out of your process. You probably have people in your organization that are sitting there today that are looking at data or documents, and they're keying data into another system. And that's just a great place to start. So what does that look like? That's often just a background process that doesn't really involve a user. We can also use RDA, or robotic desktop automation, to add automation directly inside of Dynamics that can drive automations inside of KnowledgeLake. And so I'm sorry, I'm not trying to skirt around that answer. I would love for you to reach out for this, because I'd love for you to show you what that looks like. I don't think we have it today to just show it, but we can integrate in a lot of different ways.
Again, another great reason to schedule a call with us, and we can walk through that. An add-on to the LAX example, adding some more context to that question with LAX Airport, the user also needs to be able to see the information, maybe the page number or the screenshot from which that data is extracted.
Yep, absolutely, yes. Yep. Great question.
Yeah, that actually gets back to a little bit of what I showed earlier with in the indexing app, being able to see, okay, which page did this information come from, and also even the OCR snippet. So we can definitely do that.
Great. Another question. What level of customization is available with KnowledgeLake's AI solutions, and how can businesses tailor the platform to meet their unique document processing needs?
Yeah, great question. So, KnowledgeLake prides itself on being easy to use. I think James' demonstration showed that. Our no-code workflow designer, simple drag and drop interface, very approachable software. We pride ourselves on being very easy to use, easy to configure, and easy to work with all different types of use cases at your organization. But behind the scenes is a immense amount of extensibility, either through low code means, simple JavaScripting, or full pro code, being able to write Azure functions or Amazon Lambdas, being able to create custom components. You really can go all the way to the nth degree in creating a very, very bespoke solution for your business's needs.
All right. Any other questions, please put them in the question window. And please remember through this, the QR code or the attachments to sign up for a free consultation, customized demo. We can workshop with you. We can talk through your business needs, and happy to work with you right away. Let's see if there's any more. I don't see any more questions at the moment, but you do have my email address. Please feel free to reach out if you have any other questions. Jason, James, thank you so much for your time today. This was so informative. And to the audience, please join us next week for another webinar focused on transforming your organization with synthetic labor. And also follow KnowledgeLake on LinkedIn for all of the latest information on AI, synthetic labor, and the ways to really get your organization up to speed with AI quickly. Thank you, guys. Really appreciate it. Thank you all for joining.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Take care.